Hello and welcome back, Goats, to the Big Blue Purple channel. In this video, I'm going to give a guide on the Heavensward Relic, or the Anima weapon, in 2023. So if you're looking to get one of the easiest relic weapons in the entire game, then you've come to the right place. Before you actually get started on your Anima weapon, there's a few things I want to mention. First of all, this is a very poetic intensive grind. You're going to need like 10,000 or more poetics to complete this relic, and the more steps you want to make easier, the more poetics you're going to need in total. I'll put a list on screen of all the items that you'll need to get with poetics, so before you actually get started on grinding the relic, start stocking up on these materials every day after you finish your daily roulettes or whatever. Go spend poetics on these things. The other thing I recommend before you get started on this relic is to get the job you're doing it for to around level 80 or 90. You'll have to unsync a bunch of dungeons and trials for this relic, and the higher level you are, the faster it'll be. You can certainly do some of these at level 70 or whatever, but if you want to get this relic done as fast as possible, then being level 80 or 90 will help a lot. To get started with your relic weapon, make sure you've completed the Heavensward MSQ at a bare minimum, and to actually start the relic, you're going to go over to Azzi-La. Right next to the Aetheryte, you'll be able to find a quest. It's called Soul Without Life. That is the first step. First off, this quest will send you to Mor Dhona to speak with a few NPCs. Sin'dini will ask you to acquire an Astral and an Umbral Nodule. There are two different ways to go about getting these. Firstly, if you've completed a Zodiac weapon from A Realm Reborn, the A Realm Reborn relic weapon, you can actually trade that in to instantly complete this step. The relic weapon doesn't need to be for the same job that you're trying to get the Heavensward relic for, so if you've completed a Zodiac weapon in the past and you don't care about keeping the original copy because you can buy as many replicas as you want, then you can go ahead and trade that in to just instantly skip this step. If you don't have a Zodiac weapon or you want to keep it for whatever reason, then you'll have to do some fates in each of the Heavensward zones. This step is similar to the Atma step from the A Realm Reborn relic if you've done that, but you'll only need to get 6 different items from fates as opposed to 12. The 6 items you need are called Luminous Crystals, and there's going to be 1 in each Heavensward zone. Keep in mind that you don't need to play on the job you're getting the relic for to actually receive these crystals as a drop. So if you have your Blue Mage leveled, that's 100% the best way to go about this. Blue Mage can absolutely speedrun Fates. Otherwise, if you don't have Blue Mage leveled, then just play whatever job you think you can do the Fates the fastest with, and make sure to bring your Chocobo with you to speed things up a bit. The Sea of Clouds will drop the Wind Crystal, Azzi-La has the Fire Crystal, Churning Mists has the Lightning Crystal, the Coerthas Western Highlands has the Ice Crystal, the Dravadian Forelands has the Earth Crystal, and then the Dravadian Hinterlands has the Water Crystal. Once you've gathered all 6 of those crystals, you can return to Sin'dini and Mor Dhona and exchange them for the Astral and Umbral Nodules. Once you've gotten them, head back to Azzi-La, and you'll be able to obtain your first weapon. The second step is called Toughening Up, and it will ask you to run 10 different dungeons with your new weapon equipped. This step is one of the main reasons that I advise you be above level 70, that way you can unsync all of these with little to no issue and super quickly. If you're still within like the level 60 level range and you can't unsync all of these, I recommend either getting a level 90 friend to help you get through these quickly, or even putting up a party finder if you don't have any level 90 friends to just get someone to help you speedrun these. You could obviously do them in Duty Finder if you wanted to, but that would take a very long time, and it's very tedious because it's just a bunch of A Realm Reborn dungeons. The 10 dungeons you'll need to run in order are Snowcloak, Sastasha Hard, the Sunken Temple of Karnhard, Keeper of the Lake, Wanderer's Palace Hard, Amdapor Keep Hard, Dusk Vigil, Som Al, the Eyrie, and the Vault. After you complete all of these dungeons in that order, return to Azzi-La and grab your Awoken relic weapon. This will be the first one with a glow to it. The third step of this relic is called Coming Into Its Own, and this is where things get a little bit more confusing because there is multiple ways to complete this step. To actually complete this step, you'll need a few different items. You'll need 10 of each of these unidentifiable items, 10 bones, 10 shells, 10 ores, and 10 seeds for a total of 40 items. These can be purchased for 150 poetics each, meaning you'll need a total of 6,000 poetics for just this step. If this is your first relic weapon, you might be wondering where you actually buy this stuff with poetics. There's 2 different NPCs you can go to. You can either go to Oriana in Revenant's Toll Mor Dhona, or you can go to Hesmina in Adelshire. When you speak to either of these vendors, you'll see a section called Special Arms. The Special Arms section is where you'll find all the different relic weapon materials that you'll need. If you don't have poetics to spend for this step, There's quite a few different ways of earning these items, but all of them can be very grindy. Firstly, if you happen to have allied seals lying around from like Blue Mage or whatever, you can exchange 300 of them at a time for each unidentifiable item. You would need a total of 12,000 seals in order to buy them all this way, which is pretty unreasonable, but it's a way to grab like a few extra items if you're a couple poetics short and you just need a few more items. Another way to get these items is actually from the Realm Reborn and Heavensward Beast tribes. If your reputation is high enough and you have enough of the currency, you can actually go buy pretty much all of these items from the different beast tribes around the world. Obviously, not many people are going to have the Realm Reborn beast tribes ranked up and stuff, but hey, if you happen to have done that, then you can get a head start on this step for sure. Now, if you're set on not spending poetics for this step, then the only way to actually feasibly farm these items is through certain Alexander normal raids. I recommend that you spam unsync these in order to collect what you need. You see, the Alexander raids will drop certain items that are guaranteed every run that can actually be exchanged for the unidentifiable items that you'll need for the relic. For the bones, you'll need to get Precision Gordian Bolts. These will drop from the Fist of the Father, and you'll need 3 per bone, which means a total of 30 runs of this raid if you plan to get all of your bones this way. For the shells, you'll need Precision Gordian Lenses, and these will drop from the Cuff of the Father, and again, all of these exchanges will require 3 per item, so you'll need to do 30 runs if you want to get them all this way. For the ore, you'll need Precision Gordian Springs. These are from the Arm of the Father. Again, 30 runs for 30 springs. Finally, for the seeds, you'll need Precision Gordian Shafts. These drop from the Burden of the Father, and again, 30 runs, and you'll be done. Personally, for this step, I would just spend the poetics, do your daily roulettes in the background, buy the items whenever you can, and eventually you'll just kind of finish it passively. Unsyncing 120 Alexander raids is absolutely ridiculous, but if you feel like doing that, then all the power to you. After you've collected all your unidentifiable items, there's a few more things you need to grab. 4 Adamantite Francesca, 4 Titanium Alloy Mirror, 4 Dispelling Arrows, and 4 King Cake. Once again, there's a few different ways to get these items, and they cannot be purchased with poetics this time. The first and the easiest method is to just buy all these off the market board. On my server, they were mad cheap. I think they cost me around 50k total to buy all of them. So if you have the gil to spare, just do it that way. It'll make this step super quick. If you have some Grand Company seals to spare, these items can also be purchased for 5k seals each. So if you wanted to buy them all this way, it would total in at 80,000 seals. My recommendation for these items would be to just spend whatever seals you currently have on as many items as you can get, and then just go buy the remainder on the market board. That way you can save yourself a bit of gil, and you can also just save yourself the tedium of farming seals for this step, because honestly it is not worth it. These items are pretty damn cheap on the market board. The final option is actually to craft these items yourself, provided you have your crafters leveled. The Francesca will require a blacksmith with Master Blacksmith 3. The Titanium Alloy requires an alchemist with Master Alchemist 3. The arrows require Carpenter with, once again, Master Carpenter 3. And the King Cakes require Culinarian with, once again, Master Culinarian 3. All of these recipes are level 60, so you'll need your crafters at 60 at a bare minimum. Once you obtain all 40 unidentifiable items and the 16 other items, return to Christina in Mordona, who you talked to at the beginning of this quest, to trade them in for Enchanted Rubber, Fast Drying Carbon Coat, Divine Water, and Fast Acting Allergen Catalyst. With these 4 items, you can return to Azillah and acquire the next stage of your relic. The 4th step of this relic weapon is called Finding Your Voice, and this is perhaps the simplest step of the entire relic because you just need to spend poetics. You'll need 5 ether oil to complete this step. They cost 350 poetics each, so you'll need 1,750 in total. Previously, you were actually able to earn ether oil through a Crystal Tower repeatable quest, but they actually removed this in 6.3, leaving poetics as the only option for getting ether oil. Once you bought your 5 ether oil, return to Azillah and obtain the next stage of the relic. The 5th step of the relic is called A Dream Fulfilled, and this is probably the most tedious step of the quest because it needs the most poetics and the most grinding. Good news is, once you get through this step, you're pretty much in the clear and everything that comes after it is very, very simple. So for this step, you'll basically need to put a bunch of stats onto your relic weapon. To actually go about doing this, you need two different items, Umbrite and Crystal Sand. You can then speak with an NPC in Adelshire called Ulan, who will be able to treat your Crystal Sand for you and turn it into stat points on your relic weapon. Sounds simple enough, but you actually need a total of 180 treated Crystal Sand, or 180 stat points, to complete this step. First off, for the Umbrite, this item can only be earned through spending Poetics. They'll cost 75 Poetics each, and you'll need somewhere between 50 and 60 Umbrite, meaning you're looking at over 4,000 Poetics total. Now, the reason I say you need between 50 and 60 Umbrite is because there's actually a little bit of RNG involved here. When you're treating your Crystal Sand for the relic weapon and turning it into stat points, there's a chance you get a bonus between 4 and 6 Crystal Sand. You see, typically you only get 3, but there's a very slight chance of getting this bonus, which could eventually lead to you spending less Umbrite and less Crystal Sand. I would say go for around 55 Umbrite and 55 Crystal Sand. Try that first, and then hopefully you get lucky and don't need to get any more. I mainly just recommend doing your daily roulettes in the background, like I said before, to just get Poetics passively, but if you'd like to grind them, I have a few different recommendations. The absolute best way I've found to get Poetics, if you have them unlocked, are Eureka and Bajda/Zadnor Fates. If you don't have these zones unlocked though, I wouldn't bother going out of your way to unlock them just to farm Poetics, because it takes a lot of time to actually make progress in both Eureka and Bajda before you can feasibly start farming Poetics and Fates. Hunt trains are also a solid option to my knowledge. I haven't actually done these myself, so I wouldn't know entirely how much Poetics you'll get, but I've heard from other players that it's definitely a great method for farming Poetics if you'd like to do that. If you're looking to just spam a dungeon over and over again to get Poetics, the Ethereochemical Research Facility will probably be your best bet, because that gives 150 Poetics per run, and it's not too long. It's a bit longer than a normal dungeon, that's why it gives extra Poetics, but it's not like Praetorium length or anything like that. Spamming this dungeon can get insanely boring though, so I only recommend doing it if you're like a couple Poetics short and you just need to do something to get those last few Poetics. One other way to get Poetics that some people may find very helpful is the first time completion bonuses. Let's say you've never completed the old Binding Coil raids or the Alexander Savage raids, or the plethora of extreme trials from the level 50 to 60 level range. You can solo pretty much all of this content at level 90 now if you're unsynced. You'll get 100 Poetics each time you complete one of these for the very first time. And if you have a friend, per se, that has never completed these, you can also leech the first time completion bonus off of them. This means just for doing the 13 Coil raids and the 12 Alexander Savage raids, you're looking at 2,500 Poetics if you've never cleared them before. Not even to mention the Savage Coil raids you can unlock after you complete the normal ones to get an extra 400 Poetics on top of that. This is a very limited way to get Poetics, and only certain people are going to be able to use these methods, but if you haven't gotten these first time completions, this is the absolute best way to just get some Poetics quickly, because unsyncing this shit takes no time at all. Now that covers a few ways to farm Poetics and get your Umbrite, but the Crystal Sand is perhaps even more tedious to go about farming. There are numerous items you can actually trade in for Crystal Sand, but many of them are not worth it at all, and some of the items aren't even obtainable in the game anymore, so those are not an option. Now, if you have a Crafter or Gatherer leveled up for this step, you are in luck, because this will be way easier for you than anyone else. If you farm white scripts for either your Crafter or your Gatherer, you can exchange them for blue Crafter's script tokens or blue Gatherer's script tokens. These will cost 25 white scripts each, but you'll need to exchange 5 of them at a time for 2 Crystal Sand. That'll be 125 white scripts per 2 sand. So you'll need like 3,750 white scripts to purchase all of the blue tokens. If you're someone who engages with crafting and gathering content, you probably have your own way of farming white scripts. Personally, what I did was the giant Papato pancakes for Culinarian. Also, make sure to do your weekly custom deliveries because they're extremely easy and they give you a ton of white and purple scripts for basically free. Now, if you don't have crafters or gatherers leveled, this is where things can get a bit more tedious. The number one method I recommend is farming Amber Encased Vilekin. This is from Heavensward Leave quests. They specifically drop from the random chests that have a chance of spawning during these leave quests. The most efficient way to go about farming this is to pick a leave in a Heavensward zone, initiate it, look around for a chest in the leave zone, and abandon the leave if you don't find a chest or after you find the chest. Don't bother completing any of the leaves, just initiate it, look for the chest. If there's no chest, abandon it. If there is a chest, open it and then abandon it. You will be guaranteed to get this amber encased vilekin from the chest if it spawns. It's just a matter of getting lucky with the chest spawning. In my experience, the chest seems to spawn about 1/5 of the time, so this method can still take a while, but it's significantly cheaper and faster than any other method I'm about to talk about. Each amber encased vilekin will give you 2 crystal sand, so you'll need around 30 of them to get all the crystal sand you need. Now, if for some reason you don't have any leave allowances and you're not a crafter or gatherer, then the only other option you can really look at that's fairly efficient would be the primal parts from A Realm Reborn Extreme Trials. You'll need either Inferno Horn, Crag Heart, and Diamond Tear, or Vortex Feather, Barb of the Whirl, and Large Levin Orb. These can sometimes be pretty cheap on the market board, but they can also be really expensive sometimes depending on the day. I recommend using the Universalis website, which will show you which server and data center the items are cheapest on, so you can go ahead and world hop over there and get them for a cheap price. The last option I guess is worth mentioning for getting crystal sand is just to spend more poetics. You'll need 5 Superior Enchanted Ink and 5 Thavnarian Mists, which will cost you around 225 poetics for every 2 crystal sand. I only recommend this as a last resort if you need a few extra crystal sand, since it would cost you 6,750 poetics to get 60 crystal sand this way. Now, if you are just working on this relic weapon in the background sort of thing and you just do your daily roulettes, then this is certainly an option if you're not super intent on just grinding out this step. Otherwise, the other methods I mentioned are far more efficient. Now, once you've got all the crystal sand and the umbrite that you need, head to Ulan and Idyllshire to treat the crystal sand and turn it into stat points. The stats don't really matter nowadays because who's using a Heavensward relic for stats and not for glamour, so put the stats into whatever the hell you want or look up online what the most optimal stats for your specific relic is. It really doesn't matter. After you put the first 90 stat points into the weapon, you'll get a cutscene before you can put in the second 90 stat points. Once all 180 of the stat points are used, you'll be done with the most time-consuming and tedious step of this entire relic weapon, and it only gets much easier from here. Return to Azillah with the stat points allotted to receive your reconditioned anima weapon and to begin the next step of the relic, Future Proof. This next step will just have you obtain 50 singing clusters. Once again, you can just purchase these for 40 poetics each, totaling in at 2,000 poetics if you just want to buy them all. But there are also 2 repeatable quests in Idyllshire that'll become available to give you singing clusters. Seeking Inspiration will have you run Leveling Roulette 3 times for 18 singing clusters. This quest can only be completed once per week though. The daily quest, Cut from a Different Cloth, will also be available, and it'll have you run your 50, 60, 70, 80 roulette for 1 singing cluster, again once per day. If you have some patience, you can completely ignore spending poetics for this step and just wait 2 weeks for the repeatable quests to keep resetting so you can just get all the singing clusters that way. But if you're in a rush to get the weapon done, then spending poetics is your only other option. Personally, I would just recommend doing each of these repeatable quests once to get yourself 19 clusters, and then just buy the other 31 with poetics. That way you're not spending a shit ton of poetics, but you're not going to have to wait a whole week just for the quest to reset. It's also worth noting that these repeatable quests will become permanently available after you get to this point on your first relic weapon. So if you just do leveling roulette on a regular basis anyway, but you're not working on one of these relics, go ahead and just pick up that quest every week so you can keep getting singing clusters, and if you ever want to do a future relic, you'll have a stockpile of them ready. Once you've got all 50 of your singing clusters, return to Azillah for your sharpened anima weapon. The next step is called Born Again Anima, and it will start by having you run 3 level 60 dungeons. These will be Som Al Hard, the Great Gubal Library Hard, and the Lost City of Amdapor Hard. Once again, I just recommend unsyncing these as it will speed things up, and you don't even need to have the weapon equipped for these, so feel free to use your highest item level weapon, just make sure the relic is in your inventory. The real meat of this step comes after the dungeons though. You'll need to start farming light for your anima weapon. This is kind of similar to the Zodiac weapon light farming if you're familiar with that, but much easier. For the actual light farming portion of this step, make sure to have the weapon equipped in order to actually get any light. You'll also get the Anima Glass item in your inventory, which will allow you to view the progress of your light farming as you go. Now, you can run pretty much any Heavensward content to go about farming light, but the absolute best method for farming is the Alexander the Eyes of the Creator Savage Raid, or A9S. You'll only need to run this 20 times, and if you're lucky enough to get the bonus light, you'll only need to run it 10 times. To quickly explain bonus light, there's basically a chance that any given activity will give you double the light that it usually does. I believe this is completely random and it rotates every hour or two. There's not currently a way to track which activities are giving the bonus light, so I wouldn't focus on this too much. A9S without the bonus light will still be faster than any other method with bonus light. If you're a level 90 DPS job, you should have no problem just soloing A9S in around a minute and a half or maybe less. Tanks and healers will take a decent chunk longer, so most people will just put up a party finder for doing this in order to make the kills as quick as possible. With a full team of level 90s, you're looking at less than 30 seconds per run. Even if you're a level 90 DPS job and can easily solo this, I recommend joining up a party finder group if you see one, just to help out the tanks and the healers who can't do quite as much damage. If you're looking to put up a party finder yourself because no one else has one, just put the description as like Anima light farming and people should join pretty quickly. Just make sure to set the duty to unrestricted because you obviously want to be unsyncing it. Now lastly, to actually complete this step, you'll also need to do a repeatable quest in Azila to obtain a newborn soulstone. The quest is called Some Assembly Required, and it can be found right across from Geralt at the processing node. This quest will task you with collecting 15 Numite. Numite can either be purchased for 100 poetics each, totaling at 1500 for all the Numite, or it can be purchased for 4000 Grand Company seals each, totaling in at 60k seals. I personally recommend buying as many with seals as you can since we've already spent enough poetics at this point, and the final step will require 500 more poetics to complete the relic. Once you get your 15 Numite, trade it back into the processing node to obtain your soulstone. With the soulstone acquired and your light farming complete, you can now speak with Geralt to obtain your quote-unquote complete Anima weapon, even though it's not actually complete because there's still one more step. Now, if this is the first time you're doing a Heavensward relic, there's actually two quick detour quests you'll need to do to get yourself the Anima minion. The first quest is called Body and Soul, and the second quest is called Words of Wisdom. It'll just show up in Azila after you complete the light farming step. You'll just go through that quest chain, get a couple cutscenes, get your Anima minion, and you'll be able to move on to the final step. If you are doing your second or third Anima relic, you'll never have to do these quests again. It's only for the first relic so you can get the minion. The last step is called Best Friends Forever, and it's super straightforward. It'll just have you run 12 different trials. These can be super easily unsynced provided you're high enough level. And I've noticed that a lot of the light farm parties will do all of the trials as a group to speed things up once they finish light farming. The trials you'll need to do, and these are all on the hard difficulty by the way, are Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, Good King Mogglmog, Leviathan, Rama, Shiva, Ravana, Bismarck, and the 3 Warring Triad trials, and those ones don't have a hard mode. Finally, after the trials, you'll just need 1 bottle of Archaic Enchanted Ink, which can be purchased for 500 poetics. Bring your enchanted ink back to Ardashir and Azila, and you now have completed your Anima Heavensward relic. All in all, I hope you found this video helpful if you're looking to get a relic weapon for Heavensward in 2023. If you're someone who's completed one of these relics in the past, feel free to leave your suggestions in the comments below for other people trying to get their first relic done. This is probably the easiest relic in the game to complete, simply for the fact that you just kind of passively complete all of these steps if you do your daily roulettes. 90% of this relic is just spending poetics and then unsyncing dungeons, so if you already have all the materials in advance, you can finish this relic in like an hour or 2. That's going to do it for this guide though. Remember to drop a like on the video, but only if you found it helpful. Subscribe to the Big Blue Purple channel if you want to see more Final Fantasy XIV content in the future. And go grind yourself some poetics.